Viva Garnacho! Viva Garnacho! Running down the wing, hear United sing. Viva Garnacho! Manchester United have somehow managed to beat Aston Villa 3-2 on Boxing Day to create what can only be described as a Christmas miracle. That game had absolutely everything. We started off with Onana shitting the bed to concede 2 goals, followed by a disappointing reaction in that first half. Then we start off the second half with a disallowed offside goal by Garnacho. Follow that up with Rashford actually crossing the ball to create Garnacho's first goal. Then Garnacho refusing to cross the ball to Højlund to make it 2-2. And then Garnacho actually scores his second goal to level terms with Villa. And finally, Rasmus Højlund chose today of all days to show up at Old Trafford and score the winning goal, making it his first Premier League goal as well. I don't think I've seen a crazier turn of events occur in a game of football in a long time, but I'm sure someone in the comments will prove me wrong. To top it all off, I heard a stat before the game today that United hadn't lost a Boxing Day game at Old Trafford since 1978. And with Aston Villa rolling into town after beating Arsenal, Man City, and Tottenham in recent weeks, I was very sure that this 45-year-old record was going to be broken today. But my word, we pulled off a miracle by actually playing some really good football in that second half. And before we go into any tactics, I want to shout out Johnny Evans, Rafael Varane, Diogo Dalot, and Aaron Wan-Bissaka. They gave absolutely everything for the shirt today to stop Villa from getting even a sniff in that second half, and the fullbacks were even constantly bombing forward to break the offside trap set by Villa. Diogo Dalot in particular, man, he's been getting so much unfair stick from our fan base, and I just don't get it. He's fit all the time, he plays all the time in any position that Ten Hag wants, and he's always left hung out to dry by his wingers and some of his midfielders. So what more can you expect from one guy? But obviously we're going to analyze the main stars in Garnacho, Eriksen, and Kobbie Mainoo today, who arguably saved Ten Hag's job. But before we do that, please drop a like and subscribe to the channel as a holiday gift to me. Now let's get into it. So one thing that I've consistently complained about all season is Ten Hag's use of just one holding midfielder with 2 8s or 10s in front of him. Alongside the poor defensive work rates that we've been getting from our wingers, this incredibly attacking makeup of our midfield has led us to being so open to the point where pretty much any team wanting to break us down has done so through the middle like knife through butter. And the question that I've been asking myself is, why doesn't he just use 2 holding midfielders and go back to building a winning run off a solid defense, just like he did last year? And after the first 26 games of the season, I was convinced that this had to do with Ten Hag's decision to make us the best transitional team in football. And his decisions back this up because he brought Mason Mount to the club to improve on Christian Eriksen in midfield. And it's also why he played Scott McTominay in that role while Mount has been out injured for most of the season. But here's the problem with this particular line of thinking. Ten Hag's 2 replacement options for Eriksen in Mason Mount and Scott McTominay have almost nothing in common with Eriksen. Both Mount and McTominay like to pass and move into the final third. Both players are better at short passes to keep the game ticking over than they are at pulling strings from deep. The only real similarities between those two and Eriksen is that none of them can defend to save their lives. So in playing McTominay or Mount over Eriksen in the midfield, we don't improve defensively and we lose out on all the creativity and game management that Eriksen offers. We all saw today how much better the front 4 were, including our wingers in Rashford and Garnacho, just because someone like Eriksen played a little deeper next to Mainoo. And we have a clip from early on in the second half to show you exactly what I'm talking about. We start with Onana about to receive the ball inside the box, and you can see how Evans is in the left back spot with Dalot playing in midfield next to Mainoo, and Christian Eriksen is stationed just in front of these two in midfield. As we play along, pay attention to Christian Eriksen's movements as he moves further towards the left hand side of the pitch over here to make the pitch bigger for United and to make Villa more off the ball work to do. Right, we see him moving towards this side, and now he's in this space over here. Now as Varane takes a few more seconds on the ball, look again at how Eriksen is moving to give United more options. if Varane decides to play the ball towards Garnacho, Mainoo, or Bruno in this triangle over here, these guys will most likely need a fourth man to be available in space somewhere over here. Of course, that could be Højlund or Rashford, but those two players are more likely to be covered by the center backs and the right back. So this movement by Eriksen into this kind of space here could really benefit United 3 or 4 passes down the line. Now, as Varane plays this off to Wan-Bissaka at the back, and Wan-Bissaka decides to play it back to Onana because that's the most logical pass, look again at how Eriksen is moving into the same space that he was a second ago, right? He's moving back into this sort of area so that Onana has an extra passing angle to play out the ball from the back. And you might be wondering here, so what if Eriksen is making some off-the-ball moves without actually impacting the play directly? Ask yourself this. How many times do you see Scott McTominay moving over to left back to provide extra passing angles? How many times does McTominay actively try to move into a position where he can actually receive the ball? And sure, Mount might be more technically sound than McTominay, but even his first instincts are to make runs in behind more often than to drop deep to pick up the ball. Moves like this that we're about to see Eriksen making here are very rare for someone like McTominay or Mount to make. And now that we have Eriksen this deep on the left-hand side, look at this wonderful triangle that's formed by Evans, Eriksen, and Dalot that you're going to see in a second, right? This triangle right here that you're starting to see form, this gives so much space for 3 Villa players to actually go and press and win the ball back that it's very difficult for them to do so. If Villa really want to be successful in the press here, they actually have to throw in a 4th man, by which point United have a numbers advantage further up the pitch. Now we're going to skip forward a few seconds of game time to get to this point right here, where Eriksen is still in the left back spot trying to provide an extra passing option for Evans, but Evans decides to go to Varane in right center back. And as you see Varane getting the ball, Eriksen starts to get forward a little, and as soon as Varane actually turns towards the ball, you can see that Eriksen notices this as a perfect moment to start making his forward run, right? And you can see him moving forward here, and Varane is in a good position now to play that ball in behind into Eriksen's path. So Eriksen starts speeding up. At that perfect moment, Varane decides to play the pass too, and you can actually see here that Eriksen has just managed to stay onside. There's one player that's kind of off your screen at this moment, but he is actually onside right now. But unfortunately, Eriksen isn't fast enough to get on the end of this ball and actually win the ball and perhaps score a goal. But you can see that he's made an intelligent run at the right time to actually cause the other team some trouble. So what are our key takeaways here? It's obvious that Eriksen is much more versatile in possession, both in his passing and in his position. And Eriksen even makes better forward runs than McTominay, which is something that McTominay is supposed to be better at. And both of these are only possible because Eriksen reads the game a million times better than McTominay. Not to state the obvious here, but McTominay, and to a lesser extent Mason Mount, are extremely limited footballers who don't really fit into our midfield setup. Even Eriksen doesn't really fit in there because he doesn't have the legs anymore. Otherwise, he actually gets on the end of this ball from Varane, and we perhaps score from that. But at least Eriksen has the game intelligence to do the right thing at the right time and be in the right place at the right time. And look, you obviously can't blame Ten Hag for playing Eriksen over McTominay or Mount this entire season because Eriksen's been injured for most of the time. But you can question Ten Hag's team building and recruitment skills because he actually bought Mount as an Eriksen upgrade. Not only was that a waste of £55 million in my opinion, but it also made Bruno worse because when Mount or McTominay play in the team, Bruno has to contribute more defensively where he does not do his best work. So now that we've discussed Eriksen's impact on the team, let's talk about our teenage sensations, Kobbie Mainoo and Alejandro Garnacho, who both played well beyond their years today and made this extra special comeback possible for United fans around the world. Now we're going to start things off with Johnny Evans trying to play out from the back and Mainoo's playing in that lone CDM role in front of the back line. As we play along, we see Evans playing kind of a pacey ball into Mainoo in a tight space where he's surrounded by 3 Villa players. But Mainoo actually manages to keep his composure, relatively speaking, and figures out a way to squeeze the ball through to Evans through this gap right here and plays it into a safe area for United so that Evans can actually go pick it up towards the left back spot over here. Once Evans gets the ball under control, he plays it out to Rashford up front, who drops deep to pick up the ball, as you can see off screen right here. And as Rashford gets the ball, you can see Evans is already pointing towards this space in the middle where Mainoo should actually drop in so that he can pick up the ball. And that's exactly what Mainoo's trying to do here. As Evans gets the ball back from Rashford, Mainoo is now in a great position right there to receive the ball and play it forward to Rashford if he decides to spin his man here and Mainoo has an easy pass into the channel. So Evans decides to fire the ball towards Mainoo into this channel here, but it actually ends up getting into Dallow's path right there, and Dallow decides to start dribbling forward with the ball. And as we pause it right there, this little passage of play between Evans, Rashford, Dallow, and Mainoo has led to United beating the Villa press and being out on the counter-attack immediately. So you can see the importance of someone like Mainoo keeping his composure out deep here. Instead of just playing it back to Onana, who has to lump it forward, he keeps his composure, gets the ball out, makes the right play, and that leads to United eventually beating the press and getting out on the counterattack. We've seen Mainoo do this today. We've seen him do it against Liverpool. We've also seen him do it against Everton. I don't think I've seen composure like this in someone this young outside of true superstars like Jude Bellingham. What this kid is capable of right now is just remarkable. Now, this next clip is probably the favorite passage of play I've ever analyzed on this channel because it has heavy involvement from both Kobbie Mainoo and Alejandro Garnacho. We start with Wan-Bissaka fighting for a loose ball near the center circle with Mainoo super close to him and Garnacho just up ahead. As we play along, the ball ends up falling to Mainoo and he's immediately surrounded by 5 Villa players, as you can see here. This makes a pass to Wan-Bissaka or Eriksen out of the question because they don't have the time or space to take a first touch after the pass. The pass to Bruno is kind of risky because he has to dig it over these 2 players here, and if he makes a mistake, they're straight through on the counterattack. And the pass to Varane, Evans, or Dallow will take Mainoo extra time because he has to change his body shape to play those angles. Mainoo's only real option in this situation is to try to play a ball forward and hope that if it goes wrong, Villa wins it back in their own half instead of it going wrong and Villa winning it back in United's half. But through some Christmas miracle, Mainoo actually finds a pocket of space beyond Douglas Luiz while Garnacho is free to receive the ball in this area right here. And now all of a sudden United are free through on the counterattack, pretty much 4v4 or 3v4, however you want to look at it. The point is that United have bypassed the 5-man Villa press that we saw in the center here just because of that one clever pass from Mainoo. Now, as Garnacho turns into space, Moreno actually tries to test his first touch by pressing him, but Garnacho is able to quickly play the ball out to Bruno and avoid that tackle from Moreno right here. We see Bruno pretty much has the ball clear on the right wing. So as Villa are panicking in defense, Bruno ends up getting the ball on the right wing and he drives a first-time ball into the box that gets intercepted by a Villa player and falls straight into the path of Alejandro Garnacho. And of course from here, Garnacho manages to score a deflected shot past Martinez for our second goal. What an absolutely amazing moment this was to witness in real time. For us to be so terrible in the first half, concede those goals so easily, and to come back was just beyond belief. But I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I was pretty much ready to be Ten Hag out after we conceded those 2 goals in the first half. And I was actually going against all of my best judgments to think that. Because I know it's not Ten Hag's fault that we overpaid for Antony, for Martinez, Casemiro, Højlund, and even Amrabat's 10 million loan fee. I know that it's not his fault that we've had several long-term injuries to players like Mainoo, Casemiro, Eriksen, Martinez, Shaw, and Malacia. But at some point, you have to wake up and smell the coffee. Because we keep conceding 3 or 4 goals in games even when the opponents are shite. We can't create enough chances to consistently score even 1 goal a game. And we don't see any real progression from the team. And a lot of these problems are self-created for Ten Hag, like buying Onana and letting De Gea leave. So when Villa scored those 2 goals without even really doing anything in the game, I could just smell blood in the waters. It looked like we were about to be on the end of another 7-0 defeat, and I was just done. But then, the performance that we saw in the second half from this team, the way we came out swinging for the fences and were more prepared to beat those offside traps from Villa that we struggled against in the first half. All of that showed me a team that is still fighting for this manager, a team that doesn't want to let the fans down, and a team that doesn't want to let the club down. The fact that this comeback was led by amazing performances from two academy graduates in Mainoo and Garnacho was just the cherry on the icing on the cake. So what exactly does this performance and this result mean for United? Will we now get into the top 4 race? Is Ten Hag now safe from the sack? Will this be a real turning point for United and for Ten Hag? I think the answer to all 3 of those questions is a resounding no. We are an incredibly frustrating and inconsistent team right now, and we could win 3 more games like this one, and I'd still be waiting for the game where we lose 3-0 to Luton or Sheffield. We've seen United put in performances like this and get results like these in the past. Remember the 3-2 win against City when they were going to win the league if they beat us at home and they were up 2-0 at halftime? Remember the 3-1 against Arsenal last season when they played us off the park at Old Trafford, but we beat them on the break. And of course, who can forget the 3-1 win against PSG to get into the Champions League quarterfinals only to be embarrassed by Barcelona. This United team is very much like an amateur magician who can one day pull a rabbit out of a hat and the other can't even shuffle a deck of cards to save their life. So until I see some consistency to that magic, I'm not booking my tour tickets yet. The only positives I'm taking to the bank are as follows. First, Garnacho seems to be consistently improving this season. He has 5 goals and 1 assist already. He's slowly getting into the right positions at the right time, and as soon as he starts making some better decisions, he will start to get double-figure goals and assists in all competitions. From there, sky truly is the limit for this kid. Second positive, Kobbie Mainoo is a literal gift from the gods. We can't even really talk about his game improving this season because he was great in his first game against Everton, and he has maintained that consistency throughout tough challenges against top 4 teams like Liverpool at Anfield and Aston Villa at home. Our third and final positive is that we're actually getting some players back from injury like Eriksen, Varane, and Shaw. And even Casemiro, Mount, Martinez, and Maguire should all be back in January. And look, it's clear that Ten Hag is in an unenviable position as Manchester United manager. Nobody wants that job right now because of the uncertainty around the club and the task that's actually ahead. So even if we did lose that game 7-0 and I said Ten Hag out, I would have also said that we shouldn't actually sack him. There's no point sacking the manager no matter how bad it gets during the season. We just have to get through the season and assess things in the summer. The last 2 occasions where we sacked a manager mid-season and assigned a caretaker, it was a disaster. Oli replaced Mourinho mid-season and set us back 3 years in our progress, and Ranić replaced Oli mid-season and led to our worst finish in Premier League history. So please, have some patience, my friends. We will get through this. Thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.